Saludos a toda la afición de Lucha Libre Online. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de Lucha Libre Online. Gente, aquí nuevamente con el privilegio enorme de presentarles a mi invitado especial en la tarde de hoy, de Bolton, Ontario, Canadá, para el mundo, su campeón de la División X de IMPACT Wrestling, The Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander, is here in Lucha Libre Online. Josh, man, it is a pleasure to have you back here. How are you?
I'm well, man. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I wanted to start this interview asking you, how did your passion for pro wrestling started?
Well, I was an only child. I was about like 12 years old. I lived in the middle of nowhere. We had 3 channels on my television. Times have certainly changed. And, none of them got wrestling, so I didn't know it existed. My mom just bought me a magazine one day, and it had Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, and Mike Tyson on the cover leading up to WrestleMania 14. And through that, I discovered that pro wrestling even existed. And I went to video stores and rented every, video I could after that. And that's where the obsession began.
And after you did that, you decided to start training. You were a prodigy of Johnny Devine. What do you recall of your early days training back in Canada, but specifically, what do you recall of your first bump?
My first bump, I just remember knocking my head and, feeling that like the stars are flying around me, all that stuff. And then, learning very quickly that when I take advice, I can adjust myself. And like then the second bump I took, I never hit my head again because I was told to tuck my head all of a sudden. But like the early days of training, I just remember when I remember it, I feel like I was in over my head because, you're talking about 500 Hindu squats a day, or you know what I mean, just to get in the ring, and then you're grueling through training. And I was not an athlete. I was not born to do this. I was not born to do anything athletic. I had to do everything in my power to make sure that, I busted my ass and worked hard to get to this point so that I could be an athlete. You know what I mean? So it was a rough start, but I was a quick learner, so that helped.
And after, being part of that rough start, you finally graduated from your wrestling school and had the opportunity to have your first pro wrestling match. What do you recall of that pro wrestling match? Where were you? Who was your opponent? How did you feel? And how many times did you botch? Because usually the first match is not as we expect it to be.
I actually have this on DVD, and I don't think I'll ever supply it to anybody. But it was a student show, and I was thrust into a 4-way tag match after like maybe a month of training because somebody had to like call in sick and they needed somebody to fill it, and I knew how to bump. And it was a 4-way tag match, and it went 42 minutes or something like that, some obscenely long amount of time. So I probably botched obscenely like a million times at least. And all I recall from it is I wore a white t-shirt, and by the end of the match, my white t-shirt was red because I had been chopped so many times that my chest bled through my shirt. But that was my initiation into the pro wrestling world in 2005.
And after that, you were basically a trotamundos, as we call it in Spanish. You traveled the whole world, the whole independent circuit. You were part of Ring of Honor, PWG, among many other companies. And you decided to settle in a home, and that home was Impact Wrestling. At that moment in 2019, why did you as an individual decided that was the best thing for your career and for your personal life as well?
I liked the fact that Impact Wrestling would still allow me to do independence, to build my name even further so I can be worth more, by the time my next contract rolls around or whatever. And I like the fact that I could get a visa so I could wrestle in America. And I've looked at Impact Wrestling as like a catalyst for my wrestling career to begin with, because all my favorite wrestlers as a fan when I was a teenager came from Impact Wrestling. I'm talking like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Low Ki, like all these different names. Like Impact Wrestling was my thing because WWE was boring to me at that time. They had no competition. So the second those Wednesday night pay-per-views popped up, that's what reignited my love for wrestling. So I think it was cool and full circle that I could sign with them.
And after that, you were part of the tag team division. You were one of the longest reigning tag team champion in the history of Impact Wrestling. And suddenly you are a singles wrestler. How challenging has been this part of your career so far?
I mean, the second I found out I was going to have to be a singles wrestler and, Ethan was leaving, In the beginning, you get nervous or you start to like overthink and all this other stuff. But then I reminded myself that it took me 14 years to get to Impact Wrestling. I would say in that time, I've had 1,000 matches. 800 of those matches haven't been tag matches. They've been singles matches on like a high caliber against some of the best talent in the world all over the place. So I have a lot of experience as a singles wrestler. I just think it was a prime position after 2 years in Impact, only being a tag team competitor, because I was ready for the opportunity. And like, if you go back in that 2-year tag run, anytime the North had an issue with a singles wrestler, I was the one in the ring with them. And if you go and watch those matches back, like me and Eddie Edwards, me and Marufuji, me and Vikingo, like all these matches stand out as like big, like match of the night quality matches, which is what I think the X Division embodies. So, I think I was ready for the opportunity.
And speaking of opportunities, you conquered the X Division champion on Rebellion in April. Incredible match, by the way. Congratulations for your victory and for being the champion right now. A title that was being held before by Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and many of the wrestlers, you grew up watching. How important was this victory to you as a pro wrestler, but also as a human being, the guy that, grew watching all of this product before?
As a human being, that championship is number one on my bucket list. It was that is the one that will give the 14-year-old me the most satisfaction to know that I went on to win eventually, because as I said, all my favorite guys, that's where they started. That's where they first got their notoriety in the wrestling community as a big star. You know what I mean? So like, there's that. And then from the wrestling perspective, it was validation that in this wrestling community now that I'm a singles guy, I'm a single star, and Impact trusted me enough to give me that championship and being like, okay, you want to talk this talk, now you got to walk the walk, go out there and deliver every single time we book you in a match. And like, that's the challenge now. And I love a good challenge.
And speaking of challenges, you've faced basically the whole roster at this point, except for a few guys that arrived lately. My question for you is, Impact has been an incredible role so far. During the last year and a half, it is basically in every single place. Like, I just read a press release that the product is going to be on Iraq, on Bahrain, on Oman, among many other countries, Emirates as well, Qatar. It's like Impact's product is currently one of the hottest products in the market. And as a wrestler and as an ambassador of Impact Wrestling, how important for you is to have this kind of exposure, not of yourself as a champion, but as the whole Impact Wrestling's product as well?
I think anything to help the company grows will help everything else. It'll help all the wrestlers. It'll help everything. And I think the catalyst for all of this stuff that you just mentioned, these new TV deals and this other stuff, and even like the growing interest in Impact Wrestling, it all started at Slammiversary last year. The Good Brothers showed up, the Motor City Machine Guns returned, Deanna Prato joined in, and like, she's running through the Knockouts division. Like, that was the catalyst for this, and it's only built upon that now. And now we're teasing even more for this year's Slammiversary. So I think it's like the old saying, like, strike while the iron's hot. And right now, all eyes are on Impact Wrestling, even with this Forbidden Door stuff and the crossover with Kenny Omega. So I think it's just capitalizing on that. And I see a lot of growth since I've been here, and I see a lot more growth even, in the next few years. So hopefully I'm right.
And speaking of the Forbidden Door, we've seen, for example, Kenny Omega, the Good Brothers, and many other people crossing pathways from one side to another. You're currently the Impact Wrestling X Division champion, and there's a particular matchup that caught everyone's attention. Because Miro, or formerly known as Rusev, is currently the AEW TNT champion. As being both champions, is this a match representing Impact Wrestling? Is this something that you will be interested in the future?
Anytime Impact wants to call me and they want me to wear my my Impact Wrestling jersey and go over to enemy territory and represent, I will be more than happy and more than prepared to do so. And I guarantee I will not let the company down.
And speaking of the partnerships, Impact is right now working with basically any important company in the world. AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, AAA in Mexico, among many other ones that we highly probably don't know so far. How important has been these partnerships to, establish Impact Wrestling's new version or new face and new product into the different markets all around the world?
I think my take on it is that a lot of fans love unpredictability. That's why in the Monday Night Wars era, everything was like going crazy, and then it had a drop off, and then TNA started, and then it like picked up again, and like it's been cyclical ever since. And I think we're coming back into one of those, upward trends where like AEW, New Japan, AAA, Impact Wrestling, you have no idea what's going to happen or what matchups might be. So I think it's a benefit for all fans of pro wrestling, and I think any of those fans that might have been, soured by something in Impact or TNA in the past, now they can come back and revisit this, this new fresh coat of paint that's been put on the company and this new roster and all this other stuff. And maybe they'll become fans again. So I think it helps with all these crossovers, getting fans from AAA, as you said, New Japan and AEW, to come back to Impact Wrestling and be like, hey, they're doing something special.
You actually had the opportunity to wrestle in Mexico before, the pandemic hits and everything. How was your experience, working in Mexico for Impact Wrestling, having the opportunity to perform in front of the crowd with some Mexican talent as well?
I loved it. I'm a pro wrestler through and through. I want to wrestle in every country all over the world against the very best. And I think, like, personally, from my opinion, me and Vikingo, I think Vikingo is one of the best wrestlers I've ever been in the ring with. He can do things that I didn't imagine possible. And the thing that got me as a pro wrestler, the bell rang, he pinned me in that match. And all of a sudden I just start getting hit with coins and all this other stuff. And I'm confused because in Canada, this doesn't happen. In America, this doesn't happen. I turn, I look, and the referee's just like, it's good. It's good. I'm like, oh, okay. And like all these coins are coming. I still, to this day, if I had my wallet on me, I'd show you. I still have, I converted all my take of it, and I converted it into a bill. So I have that bill in my wallet from all that money that the fans threw in the ring that day, and I'm going to keep it there forever.
That's actually a pretty important match. When fans threw money inside the ring, it's because the match was a hell of a match. They enjoyed it, and they decided, to pay for it even more, because it was worth more than the value they pay for the tickets. So they definitely, love the experience. You are a Canadian. There's many wrestlers in Canada throughout the history. You have the Hearts, among many, many, many other people. But so far on Impact as well, we've seen a lot of them. How important for you it is to be a Canadian following a tradition of your home country, because it is either hockey or pro wrestling, and both of them you guys do it awesomely. So how important for you is to be a Canadian inside the pro wrestling industry?
It's kind of been like something I've been branded with in the past few years, especially because like I wear the Maple Leafs on my gear all the time, and that's just to show pride of where I came from. Because in my opinion, like you said, if you go down the list, the Bret Harts, the Owen Harts, the Edges, the Christians, the Sami Zayns, the Kevin Owens, like the Kenny Omegas, the Chris Jerichos, like if you come out of Canada, you are one of the best wrestlers in the world, because it's so difficult to get noticed up here. So by the time you do make it to the world stage, you've earned it. I guarantee it. You've scraped and clawed and done everything in your power to make sure you were the best wrestler you could be. And that's why I have a lot of pride in being Canadian on the world scale in a professional wrestling scene.
Josh, how can you describe the current creative process in Impact Wrestling? Because years ago, I was told that it was extremely free. You can still today, as far as we know, give your ideas and speak up freely. So the fact that the company is more successful than ever hasn't changed the fact that you can, go with the open doors politic and propose an idea. So for you, so far, how's been your experience creatively while speaking inside Impact Wrestling?
I've loved every minute of everything they've done. Like you said, like anything. If I have an idea, or whether it's a promo or a match or whatever, for honestly, for matches, they trust me at this point, and it's up to me to paint my picture. And like that's all I could ask. Like you can tell me like where you want to go with this and all this other stuff, and I'll make it happen. And I appreciate the trust like tenfold. You have no idea, because that's my creative outlet. But like promos and stuff, any ideas you have character wise, like you can come to these guys and you can offer suggestions, and they might be like, yeah, that's better than what I wrote, so let's do that. They're very open to all this stuff. And I think that's why the product is actually succeeding, because all the guys and girls in the locker room are more invested in what they're doing, because they get to offer like their 2 cents. They're not just actors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you guys are wrestlers, and you can be, what you want to be. If you allow me, even though this is gonna already highly probable being edited by Jacobo with my lousy captions in Spanish here, I also want to say something else in Spanish, if you allow me. Impact Wrestling tiene su producto todos los jueves a las 8 de la noche por Access TV y por Twitch. Pueden sintonizarlo para ver el campeón de la División X, Josh Alexander. Pueden ver a Eddie Edwards, pueden ver a Rhino, pueden ver a Violent by Design, entre muchísimas otras superestrellas dentro de la industria. TJP, hay tanto talento de alto calibre en esta empresa que vale la pena cada segundo del programa. O sea, créanme, no es un programa en donde ahogan el resto de las superestrellas con un producto normal. Impact, créanme, el producto es bueno de principio a fin, las 2 horas son buenos, así que dense la oportunidad. Todos los jueves, 8 de la noche, Access TV y Twitch, y pueden conseguir su mercancía. Está disponible en shopimpact.com para t-shirts, para diferentes cosas, y también tienen su tienda en eBay te lo puedes conseguir como Impact Wrestling, en donde tienen mercancía firmada la gran mayoría de las veces, signed merchandise, entre muchísimas otras cosas. Así que echen un poquito el ojo al producto de ellos en eBay, en Impact Wrestling, para memorabilia completamente de colección. Josh, man, it's been an honor to have you back here at Lucha Libre Online. I wanted to thank you so much for your time and for the opportunity. Last but not least, what message can you send to the fans in Latin America or in fans in general, like from the whole globe, to see Impact Wrestling's product on every Thursday night?
All I can say to all fans all over the world that want to tune in Impact Wrestling is, so long as you see my entrance music come on and watch me walk down the ramp, you are going to get your money's worth every single time, because I'm going to kill myself trying to make sure that you see badass pro wrestling every single time. And I think there's a ton of people in that locker room, men, women, that have that same mindset. So we're out here to, you know, change the wrestling world and try to get more eyes on Impact Wrestling and grow this brand.
Perfect, man. I thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Ross, as well, for the opportunity. And to all our fans, tune in. Well, I'll say it in Spanish. Sigan Impact Wrestling en todas sus redes sociales. Y a Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander, de igual forma, todos los jueves, 8 de la noche, Access TV y Twitch, Impact Wrestling. No se lo pueden perder. Estos fueron Josh Alexander, The Walking Weapon, y su campeón de la División X, y Michael Morales Torres, para Lucha Libre Online, la marca número 1 de Pro Wrestling y Combat Sports en español.